opportunity to invite all the guys, our chief guest of this wonderful morning, Shri Subhash Garg, the Honorable Secretary, Ministry of Power, Government of India. Let's hear a big applause for him.
Good morning to you all, Mr. Anthony, friends and guys, and the friends in the audience. Something happened again. All right. So, I'm very happy to be here. This dream of $5 trillion economy is something which is very It's very close to my heart, at least. We made an announcement of this effect in the budget. In fact, you would recall a much larger, ambitious announcement was made a year or 6 months before in the February budget, where we talked about $10 trillion economy by 2030, early 2030s. India is at a stage where we can now dream this realistically. It's possible. Mr. Antony was demonstrating a chart where he brought out that from 2008 to 2000, it was from 500 to 1 trillion, it took about 7 years. And from 1 trillion to 2 trillion, it took about 8 years. So if the economy can grow nominally at about 11% with constant dollar, let us say, or 1 to 1.5% of the depreciation, then it's possible for the GDP to double in 7 to 8 years. It took much larger initially because the size of the economy was much smaller. When you double 50 billion to 100, it takes 8 years. Same way even if you grow. But we were not growing at that rate, so it took larger. But now, from 2 trillion to 4 trillion, 4 trillion to 8 trillion. So 4 to 8, 4 trillion you can add in about 7 to 8 years' time. That is the stage, that is the takeoff, that is the stage at which we have reached now. So 10 trillion is not an unachievable dream. We can do it. If we do it well, we can do it 1 or 2 years sooner. If we don't do well, it might get delayed by 3 to 4 years. That is where the critical part, I think, today's discussion, whether the asset reconstruction is the key for that purpose. You see, how does the growth take place? The growth takes place basically on 2 accounts. There is an investment growth and there is a productivity growth. And the investment productivity is also very clearly contributing to that. So you need both new investment as well as your existing investment to function well. That is the key to growth. If it doesn't take place, either your investment is too low in the economy or your investment is non-functional. You construct an irrigation dam, you take 20 years, but you don't construct it fully. All that investment made means nothing because the water will not be stopped and can't be used for irrigation. Likewise, if you construct a road or construct a factory, that factory is not completed, that factory doesn't produce anything, that investment is worthless. Likewise, a factory which is producing but becomes non-functional, becomes non-PA, the NPA in the bank's books and all, is not contributing to the growth of the economy. So fresh investment is not the subject today, but I must tell you that fresh investment is also extremely largely affected by the productivity and the functioning of the existing investment. It's not, the two are not disconnected. But let's focus on the existing investment. The existing investment can go bad for various reasons. There may be fraud, somebody might have simply taken away the money without having the intention of producing anything real. So those fraudulent cases can take place where equity or loan might simply disappear. get into somewhere where you can't recover. Or it can be for various business reasons. There may be technological obsolescence, technology might have come. You have seen hundreds of cases of iconic companies going bust. Kodak was the household name of everyone. Kodak is no more. In the age of technology which we have today, the digital economy and all, the obsolescence and the technology improvements are much faster. We were producing solar power at about 15 rupees a unit only 7 to 10 years back. Today we produce the solar power at about 2.5 rupees to 3 rupees a unit. Somebody who had installed that plant which was designed to produce the power at 15 rupees or 10 rupees cannot survive. That has to fail. So there may be technological reasons, there may be managerial reasons. Somebody is an incompetent manager. Even a good asset may become bad in the hands of a poor manager, a poor promoter. Sometimes the asset value remain very high, but somebody might have financed it improperly, somebody might have managed it improperly. If you have a good asset but the workers are not managed, there is a strike, the workers don't work, even in that case the asset will not function. So there are several reasons why the existing asset may not be functioning. Now the question is that asset must become well functioning, that must become a productive asset. And that is what is the key again to growth, as well as what do we do. Whenever the asset becomes non-functional or poorly functioning, or capacity utilization becomes low or whatever, the equity holders obviously suffer if they are not fraudulent or if they have not sort of siphoned off the equity or somewhere. But the debt holders invariably suffer. And those who have provided debt don't get paid, and that is what becomes the non-performing. That's the simple economic explanation of why the non-performing loans get generated. We have had this problem of non-performing loans always. I think this goes with industry, this goes with investment. I don't think there's been any phase in life or any country where the business cannot fail or some loans will not turn non-performing. It does happen. I explained to you several reasons why something can become non-performing. So non-performing loans are a reality. That will happen. If we are a more efficiently functioning economy, if we are technologically very advanced, if we have entrepreneurial class which is very efficient, and many of these things we have incidentally, the non-performance would be much less. If you have absence of these things, you might witness more non-performance in the economy. So we have had this non-performing assets right from the cows came home anytime right from the beginning. Our size of the economy was small, so it may not have been noted that much. But as the economy size grow, particularly I think one event made it more visible. Before the bank nationalization, it was the private lender which was lending, it was the private investor which was investing. And the non-performance was mutual in a way. So if the banks were inefficient, they were lending to inefficient people. And if the promoters were, so that was a different kind of problem. That's witnessed even today. Private lenders' non-performing loans today are much smaller than the public sector. Public sector becomes a slightly different story, because here I may say the public sector managers are not very highly efficient investor in the business, which we saw incidentally much more starkly in last 7-8 years when infrastructure was financed. Many of the public sector banks did not understand infrastructure financing. Their assessment, their appraisal, or many other things were there. They're very efficient people. I think one of the most talented powerhouse, if there is that, it's in the banks. Financial sector attracted the best of the talent of India in the banks. So it's not problem with the talent pool which is there, but the system, its incentives, it's the entrepreneurial ability to assess, appraise and all, but the fact remains that there is much larger incidence of non-performing loans in the banking, which is the public sector side, rather than the private side. It's not immune. Private sector also has the non-performing loans, but the extent is different. Over the years, we tried, I think, different ways to resolve it. In my judgment, there have been 4 major policy and legislative improvements which have taken place over the last 60-70 years, not 60-70, at least 40 to 50 years. First we got SICA, the Sikh Industry Companies Act. Then we got the DRTs. Then we got the SURFACE, and the last wave we got the IBC. So these are the 4. The system has improved or has changed in these last big 4 waves. What do you change when you reform these kind of systems? I think there are 3 or 4 major players, and incentive relating to them is what you change. One is, if the asset is distressed, who should be in charge? Should the debtor be in charge? Should the creditor be in charge? Or should somebody in between be in charge? I think these 4 systems had different construct. In SICA, it was the debtor which was in charge. When we got DRT, partly somebody else was brought in. SURFACE brought the ARCs, which is where we are sitting today to discuss, where a third-party player was introduced to take care of the distressed asset or the distressed debt. IBC changed the incentives completely. That no, let the promoter be completely out. Let us get the creditor in. And the creditor will also resolve it, not through someone else, but through a new promoter. So let the new entrepreneur come and take over and resolve the asset. So you change the system of financing. How do you finance it? So increasingly over the years, I think with the IBC coming into force, finally, this has been recognized that all right, whatever is the value, so it should be discovered through the IBC mechanism. So in terms of discovering the value of that distressed asset, also there has been different constructs in these 4 different eras. Finally, we have ARC was partly, and I think Mr. Antony also raised a lot of issues connected with it. How do you discover a price in the construct in which the ARCs functions today? When in the initial phase, it was basically the banks bilaterally, literally setting up their sister concerns as the ARCs and transferring them. It was more of an in-house kind of asset price discovery. Then today, when they are virtually selling it in auctions and all, and then you are discovering the prices in much better way. I think one more aspect I'll distinguish, and then I'll come to the next part of my presentation. What is who is in best position, and what can be the better way in which an asset can be resolved? And I'm not talking of dissolution. I think that is a gone case, whether it's because of fraud or the asset is completely lost. That doesn't require much of a sort of entrepreneurship or much of the enterprise or technology. That only is a more efficient process of liquidation. Who can liquidate better? Can the official liquidator of the old time do better liquidation, or RP is appointed through that system, somebody can do better, or the ARCs can. So that's relatively, in terms of numbers, that's a much larger, because most cases, as was also referred here, are the liquidation cases. But the real economic issue is reconstruction. Can we make that asset? And from that point of view, let us see for a little while who is in a best position, and is the present structure of the ARC better suited for doing it. When the debtors were in charge of the asset, you are virtually investing in the same inefficient person to try to turn around. I think this was a gone and a very easily understood solution that this will not work. And that is why Sika's record has been phenomenally poor. You put the same people who are responsible for making the asset go down under to try to revive and do it or reconstruct. That does not happen. So you can't put the existing promoters and the existing managers in the resolution business, in the reconstruction business. I think that's a very clearly learned lesson. Now it leaves two choices to my mind. One, you get an entirely new entrepreneur or a promoter, which is what the IBC does in the resolution. That the lenders are there, creditors decide, somebody, those who are interested, who can say that this asset can be reconstructed, they bid, they buy, and the lenders go off, reduce, take haircut, they get whatever they can for their debt, and the new promoters then try to reconstruct the asset and make the production. And this is what is happening. We have had outstanding success, especially in the steel business, where a lot of reconstruction has taken place very favorably. So that's one model. I think ARC model comes somewhere in between, and perhaps this is not fully developed still. The ARCs reached the asset via the debt route, not as the equity owner. I think still this issue is largely unresolved. I'm told ARCs are not allowed to invest in equity directly. They can, now they're getting, so you made in your presentation that you can get the co-investors now. So the assumption that the debt holder, so ARC becomes a debt holder, and a different debt holder from the bank can do a reconstruction, resolution, can make that asset rework. Is that something which, who are the ARCs? ARCs are also essentially the debt managers. Many of you have come from banking industry, many of you know and understand the debt better. The approach is also to get the better value for the debt. I think in my judgment, I may not know the industry. In fact, one of the reasons I agreed to come was to know more about this industry, which is very important. So, approaching the entire asset reconstruction from the debt perspective may not be the best way to resolve and reconstruct. I see now that there are, you are getting co-investors who may have more of entrepreneurial abilities. Can this model be tweaked in such a way that you actually become a kind of real asset manager, not a debt manager? And that would require, I think, the real industry players, the most competent parties who can run that industry, to be associated with the ARCs. Power sector was mentioned initially today. I must tell you that I entirely agree, this was mentioned by Mr. Anthony, that not every kind of industry or every kind of asset can be best reconstructed through the IBC. There are special characteristics where some other route is much better. Let us take power sector for example. Power sector, if you resolve the asset through NCLT, nothing will survive, practically except that plant. The PPAs go away, the FSAs go away, and if these go away, the power produced will find no buyer, it can't be sold, and therefore, what will the new entrepreneur buy through the NCLT? But if you resolve it through the ARC plus the industry expert route, then you can not only save the entire existing PPAs and FSAs, but you can also, and power sector is also technically very, such a technology intensive sector, somebody need to know that sector to run, otherwise you can't simply from that perspective manage it. So if we can bring, let us say, strong power sector players, unfortunately there also the country is in a phase where in the private sector many of the strong players actually have become weak players. We need to get, unlike the steel where it was mentioned, where we had very strong domestic players who could have taken these assets very well. In the power sector, the existing incumbents are somehow managing to survive, but their appetite and their capability to take more of the asset load is much smaller. So power sector perhaps can be resolved if we have ARCs as the financial managers, and we have an industry which can come together and buy. Is it possible to put them together and then bid for the asset? Entrepreneurs alone will not be able to do it. They need finances, and the ARCs know the finance business. So maybe we'll have to think about how do we strengthen the ARCs to work with the industry and then bid jointly to get those assets reconstructed. So that's, I think, one thing I would suggest we try to work as a policy. So ARCs are at a stage, to my mind, they have several unique strengths which we should preserve. Your SR structure is unique to you, no other one. SRs can help you raise a lot of money to do it. Again, the way it has worked in last many years, it has not been utilized to its fullest potential. There are issues connected with that. One of them again is how do you value the asset, and then the underlying SRs can be valued, otherwise you can't. You now also have, besides the IBC and other processes, you have competition from others. It was mentioned the NBFCs, and I recall recently, based on what we had suggested to the Reserve Bank, NBFCs or ECB rules have been amended to allow the foreign funds to be brought in for repaying the existing debt. This was not there earlier. So there is a condition. It's, I think, only 2 weeks back it has been done. So you can see a competition from somebody else. You can also use the same. I think you can also use the same ECB route to repay the existing loans, whether that works better or not. But there would be more competition. There is one more thing which I'll mention, which also came up today. The resolution mechanisms for the non-financial entities is very well established now with the IBC coming. But for the financial entities, there is no resolution mechanism still in the country, right? We tried to bring in that FRDI that for very odd reasons did not see the light of the day despite having been introduced. It will have to be brought back. There is no way, as we grow, financial entities are becoming equally significant in the economy. They will also face insolvency. They will also face problems. It's not that the financial entities, we are seeing some of them in the NBFC space even today, and they need to be resolved. you can't leave them just like that, because the effect of financial entities going down under or becoming insolvent is much larger systemically than of a single entity in one of the real sector going down. So we can't leave that space. That has to be resolved. But for the time being, as has also been mentioned very clearly, the ARCs have that opportunity to work or resolve the assets, and they know that business reasonably well. So maybe that's another opportunity. I must compliment, I think the issues you brought up, and both you also brought up the legal issues. Some of them are really small, they can be taken care of and must be taken care. If you take years to get that simple notification done, it's amazing. We can't work in that. We have to be much more efficient. It should be days. When you seem to be very satisfied with some weeks or months, but it should be simply days. Why not on 24 hours you get that order, just file and take it? Or there is an electronic way of filing that application and you get the orders electronically delivered to you. You just so that is the thing which we need to aim. I must compliment you all. You are all of the ecosystem, the ARCs, the fund managers, the contributors and others are all here. I wish you all well for the deliberations which you do today. I think you should believe in yourself that ARCs, I don't think you would be the key to the 5 trillion, but you can be a very important player, a very significant contributor to this. And that, if that is done by resolving the distressed assets in much better way and much quicker way, and you contribute your mind in that, that would be, I think, greatest contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's give a big round of applause, everyone. And now to conclude the inaugural session and present the vote of thanks, I would